Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
Hello, and welcome to the Popternative podcast. This is the podcast where we have digital discussions from the worlds of TV, film, pop culture, social media, everything really, depending on the guest. We talk about it all. As always, I'm your host, Peter Remoliotis, and on social media, you know me as PD Beats. You will recognize my guests from a lot of TV shows, a lot of movies. I've been naming a lot, but movie-wise, you know, Bombshell, Little Fockers, Waiting, and then in Coco in terms of voice acting, and then recently lent her voice on Crossing Swords on Hulu. Alanna Ubach is with us. Alanna, welcome to Popternative.
Thank you for having me, mister. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I mean, it's kind of like you're the guest where it's like a double-edged sword because it's amazing. Like there's so much things to talk about, but it's like, are we able to like talk about all of it? You know what I mean?
We'll get it all done. Don't worry. We have 15 minutes. Go. Let's do it.
But it's amazing, right? Because do you find that challenging sometimes when you do interviews because there's so many things to talk about?
We usually ask them what are the things that you have seen and the things that you enjoy, and ask me anything you want. I'm an open book. I'll tell you everything. And I usually have, the one thing about being a character actor is you work for a limited amount of time on these projects. You're usually working maybe 3-4 days at the most, right?
Yep.
But you walk away with such great stories about things that happen on the set and the project itself and the development of it and all of that. So it's really fun to have all of these great stories in my pocket.
So you mentioned character acting, and I mean, that is, one of many forms of what I like to call in the show storytelling. You are a storyteller. That's what you do. When did you decide that storytelling was something you wanted to do?
That's a great question. I was always playing weird characters from the time I was a little kid. I was 10 years old when I entered the Lee Strasberg Theater Institute off of, it's out here in West Hollywood. It's off Fairfax and Hayworth. And I told my mom and dad, I said, listen, I really want to do this. And they said, well, sure, cool. Let's, maybe you should start going to acting school. And I said, yeah, let me try this out. So there was a performance class. And so every 12 weeks we put on these, wacky little shows. I kind of felt more comfortable playing those weird, wacky characters. And it just sort of, manifested itself into becoming an adult character actress.
For sure. So, exciting project that like recently got dropped, of course, is Crossing Swords on Hulu.
Yes.
And, from just watching the pilot, I mean, so much fun right out the gate, right?
No, it really is a lot of fun because it's R-rated humor. That's the backdrop, with these animated little pegs that I'm sure you and I played with when I was a little girl. I remember I was obsessed with those peg toys.
Yeah.
It was my parents' way to bribe me with joining them on errand runs. So they were like, look, we'll buy you a peg toy.
No, but like the animation is also like unique, like the toys you mentioned, like it's a unique form of animation too.
No, it celebrates that nostalgic joy of play, setting with these colorful little peg toys. And what I found really interesting about the show is that it's so layered. It really is truly a work of art. I see it as, a soon-to-be exhibition at LACMA. I mean, it really does have all these amazing, incredible artists behind it. You have Seth Green and you have, Tom and John, and they really have such a very unique style to them. I mean, when Stupid Buddy Productions calls, you run.
For sure. And it's on Hulu, and there's so many streaming platforms out there right now. I can't keep track, you know what I mean? But as a character actor, I mean, there's more. Do you see it as like more streaming services, more opportunities as well?
I think so. I think it gives so many people, liberty to really find a home for their ideas, for their creative ideas. And, way back when I first started out, studios and platforms were very limited. To actually book a show on a cable network was so exciting for people because to me, I thought of cable and now these streaming services like Hulu and Netflix, et cetera, and this is on Hulu. is that there's so much content, and there's something for everyone.
Yeah.
And that's the exciting thing.
So before we started this interview, I said basically you've done so many amazing movies and shows, but like there's one specific project that I like, that my favorite project you've been in, and that I recognize you the most from, and you like not even like, you didn't even have to ask questions, you knew right away which one it was.
2 seconds after meeting you, I thought, okay, he's a young boy, he's a young man, he's quick, he's smart, he's going to, I'm sure he loves, he appreciates the raunch humor. And I said, Waiting, and I nailed it.
You are pleasant in that film, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm a real class act, aren't I?
I have to tell you though, that genre of like film, like I miss it. You know what I mean? The American Pie type. I love that genre.
It's so much fun. It's so much fun and wacky. And there's so much time to be serious and so little time to be silly. And so if I can have the opportunity to get paid to be a weirdo, I am there.
It's amazing. So that is obviously a movie where like you're acting, but there's also things where you're voice acting, you're lending your voice, and like Crossing Swords, there's of course Coco from Pixar.
Yes.
Which is like, that was like the talk of the town. Like every time a Pixar movie comes out, there's buzz and there's hype, because this one kind of was so unique and looked like it was colorful and unique. It was just like everyone was talking about Coco.
It was a giant bowl of jelly beans, wasn't it? It really was a spectacular. It was a spectacular. When I first auditioned for it, I didn't understand exactly what it was about, because Pixar is very much like Fort Knox. They don't give everything away when they sent out audition material. So I didn't really know what she looked like. I didn't know who she was. I was to understand that she was the matriarch of a family in Mexico, and she was really upset about something. So I read it, and it was the scene where she is, her picture isn't on the ofrenda, and she's wondering why it's not on it. She's complaining.
Yeah.
And I assumed that she was at the DMV. I said, why is she mad about her photo not being somewhere? Is she at the DMV? But why is her family there? Did she get a ride to the DMV? What exactly is going on? And I kept reading it more and more and more. And then I was reading it out loud. And my husband said, wait a second, Alanna, she's dead. She's dead. This is the afterlife, I have a feeling. That you're right. This might be a Dia de los Muertos movie. So everything clicked.
Just bowl of jelly beans. That's a really interesting way of putting it, for sure.
A big bowl of jelly beans, yes.
Does it sit? Was that your first Pixar project?
Yes, it was my.
So has it sunk in that you've done a prominent voice, an important character in the Pixar world?
It really doesn't. It really doesn't hit you until you go down to the headquarters in Emeryville. Yeah. I was just floored by the how detail oriented these people were. They have to be, and how much integrity behind Lee and Darla and Adrian.
Yeah.
They're all integrity based. It's no wonder that everything they touch turns to gold. It's when you meet them in person, you think, oh my gosh, I really have to bring my A game. I really have to bring my A game to the plate, because these people care so much about this project.
For sure.
Their exuberance is infectious.
Absolutely. I want to do a little bit of like a speed round thing with you right now, where I'm going to name a project. We're going to do movies. I'm going to name a movie you've been in, and on top of your head, I just want you to quickly tell me the first thing that comes to your mind in terms of making the movie, like so much fun, longest shoot.
For sure.
Okay.
Super rad game. Thank you.
Yeah. So, Meet the Fockers.
Meet the Fockers. Oh boy. Fat cushions were put around my hips in order to portray a woman who probably had a couple of kids in her lifetime. I was playing my Tia Flora, and those fat cushions made me really hot. So I was just sort of walking around with them half undone, and Ben Stiller would grab them every once in a while and shake.
Probably the best line in that film. You have that line. What a cute little fucker.
Little fucker.
That's probably like the best line of the whole movie. I'm sorry. Legally Blonde.
Legally Blonde, I got to meet one of my very best friends, Jessica Caulfield, and she played Margot in Legally Blonde 1 and 2, and we got to become just incredibly great friends, and we still keep in touch. We're in touch at least once every 2 weeks. She's amazing.
And finally,
is like a big bowl of baby's breath.
Absolutely. And finally, and a more recent film, and a film that, like, you know, you guys got nominated for a SAG for this, Bombshell.
Yeah. They used 15 prosthetics on Charlize Theron's face in order to make her look just like
that transformation was crazy.
Wasn't that unbelievable? I mean, it was something, because when you saw her walk into the trailer and then come out 2 hours later, I thought that she was Charlize's stand-in.
Absolutely. Now, Margot Robbie's character was not based on a real person, correct?
Correct. Yes.
It was based on things that happened, but they created. It wasn't like an actual person like Charlize Theron.
No. I think what Charles, the writer, what she was a symbol of the cancer of the cancer that was that was spreading throughout Fox.
What was that like, working on a project like that specifically? You mentioned, the makeup and all that was crazy, but for you specifically, what was that experience like?
It was frightening, very nerve-wracking, because you were around all of these A-listers that have won Oscars and Golden Globes, and to assume that you can just read the lines and portray a sort of on the nose character. It's not going to work with something like this. If I mimic Jeanine Pirro, I thought, okay, she's going to turn into an SNL character, so I really have to figure out who she is behind closed doors, not the celebrity Jeanine Pirro. Who is she when she's talking to her best friends and around her family, etc.
Is that like a fun challenge when you're like doing a movie or a show where you have to, like, it's based on a real person? Like, I find that's interesting.
Oh, it's so much fun. There's nothing more gratifying, especially when the person is alive, because you can see like the latest interview that they've ever given, etc., and interviews that they've given. And if the person is really famous and always in the spotlight, in fact, she has her own show. She's written books. So I really was lucky enough to delve in and fall down the rabbit hole by
Absolutely.
internet.
So I'm actually excited to ask you this question. One of there's two kind of like hallmark main questions I ask on this show. There's a storyteller question where you answer in the beginning of the interview, and then when I made Popternative, I wanted to kind of have discussions with people like yourself about discussions that you won't get anywhere else behind the scenes. You know what I mean? Like, people see everything you're in essentially, but they might not know, how long it took to shoot this or how you got the role, like the behind the scenes stuff. And I often ask about misconceptions of the industry, because people think they know everything, right? They're like, oh, it was like this when you shot that, right, Alanna? You're like, no, it was actually the exact opposite of that. So on the top of your head, are there any kind of like misconceptions like in the industry? I mean, the one that always comes up too is like, you see someone for the first time and you think that's the first movie they ever were on. Like, they weren't working in the industry for like 10 years.
Oh, that's interesting. Yes. As a matter of fact, something I found that was really interesting that I've realized in my, 35-year career is that the easiest, lightest movies are sometimes the most difficult to work on, because the stakes are higher, because it has to cater to a universal audience. So it is very serious.
Interesting.
Yes, Sister Act 2, Waiting, Meet the Fockers, those were serious sets, because they knew they had a big responsibility.
That is so cool.
Sometimes the more dire the film, the lighter it is on the set, because people will drive themselves crazy if they take it too seriously. They'll be institutionalized by the end of the set if they're working on something that is very dramatic and the stakes are very high and it's emotionally draining every day. You've got to crack jokes on the set and make it fun for everyone.
You mentioned Waiting, so I have to ask. I mean, when you're all called out at the party, did that take a lot of takes? Was there laughing that happened? What was that like?
Not at all. It was a low budget film that was filmed in someone's actual house. The great thing about Waiting is that it was such a smart film in the sense that it was on one location. So it was very easy to get, and it was very conversational. right? There wasn't a lot of, there wasn't any explosions or flying scenes or any green screen sequences. Everything was taking place at that restaurant. So I remember we had to really get it done right away, in the first or second take, because we had limited time at that one location.
For sure. I miss that genre. I mean, Justin Long's in that. I loved Accepted that he did. Like, there's so many. I love that genre.
Just such a brilliant, eloquent gentleman, Justin Long.
But you think of that genre of, like, I mentioned like American Pie, because I feel like those are the ones that really laid the foundation for a lot of those movies afterwards. Like,
yes, they were the pioneers. Those voices, those writers really were the pioneers of slapstick, naughty comedy.
And the best soundtracks. Like, that's like what I grew up on. You know what I mean? Like the Blink-182, the Sum 41, like the best soundtracks.
And I think those writers may have studied John Hughes, perhaps, when they were at film school, and to see all of the wacky, comedy, and how all these little tiny storylines sort of come together in the end.
But I loop in, like, Waiting is like one of my favorite of that genre. Like, if I talk about movies, like, it's up there. Like, it's so good.
Bless you, man. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for doing this interview. Thank you for coming on Popternative.
It has been my pleasure. It's so nice to take some time out of this pandemic quarantine and talk to someone around my age who loves movies as much as I do. No, for sure. I just love, and you know what? And like, you look at like a lot of movies and shows that are out right now, and I think it's crazy. Like, the cinematography and like how they're filming these projects right now is crazy. Isn't it wild? Isn't it crazy how they look? I can't watch a movie from the 80s without saying, oh, those were miniatures. Oh, yeah. Did you notice that? That was definitely against the green screen. Oh, they were shaking the van when they were on that wild goose chase in the car. Yeah, but the directors of photographies, I feel like they're like the unsung heroes these days. It really is. They really are. They really are. And I'm told, too, that they're working a lot more than they used to with the director as well. There's like more of a relationship between the two than ever. Oh, absolutely. It's a complete and total marriage. But was it always like that, or are you seeing it be more and more? Oh, more and more. It really is fascinating how entertainment has evolved, how filmmaking, television making really has evolved. Especially absolutely. In television now, they're really taking it to such higher heights. For sure. So plug away quickly. So Crossing Swords is on Hulu right now. Yes. And people 10 episodes on Hulu. Please watch it. It's phenomenal. Not only is it dirty and nostalgic and wild and smart, it really is unique. There's nothing like it out there. I haven't seen anything like it. It is South Park meets I guess the medieval times, at a strange ecstasy-induced slumber party. Amazing. Where can people follow you on social media to keep up to date with everything? Alanna Ubach. You can find me on Twitter and you can find me on Instagram. Amazing. TikTok. I think I'm too old for that. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you so much for having me. No problem. This has been Popternative. Be sure to check out Crossing Swords, now available on Hulu and at youtube.com/Popternative for previous episodes. Until next time, this is Alanna Ubach and PD Beats signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.